Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Roundtable Discussion with my fellow healers, coaches, and the like. Today, we're talking about a topic that's important to me as an empath, but emotional intelligence and how we can tap into that and become leaders. And I don't necessarily mean leaders in your job or your work, that type of leader. I mean leader for yourself, the leader of your own life, the CEO of your own life. So, and I'm Natalie Delane from N5 Life Coaching.
Victoria Amador here from Soul Healing Tribe. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone. This is Amelvis with the Four Elements Healing.
Hi, everyone. It's MJ with MJ Guiding Others.
So we're going to open up the way we mostly do for a lot of our topics. And I'm going to throw the question out to you guys. To you, what does emotional intelligence mean in your world and in your practice?
Well, for me, I find it's really like a person's ability to really manage their emotions and kind of like learn how to read the room, right? Like understand the emotions of people around you and learn how to navigate that to in a way that helps foster your relationships and is not damaging, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. MJ, what about you? What do you think?
I would definitely agree with you, Amelvis. This was a topic that came up when I was in college, emotional intelligence. But ever since I've been out of college, I really haven't reviewed it. But from what I have learned, that it is pretty much navigating through your emotions by understanding why it is that you're feeling the way you feel. If you're angry, why is it that you feel angry? And then sometimes what's hidden underneath that anger may be sadness, and it's just taking a step back, like looking at it as a third person and figuring out, okay, what's happening to me? Why is it happening? Where did it start from? And it's just through learning about yourself or having someone to help you identify this as well. So that's my understanding of emotional intelligence.
I love your honesty. it's quite refreshing.
Yeah.
For me, when I think about emotional intelligence, I see bubbles of, can I regulate myself and others? Like Amelva says, can I read the room? Can I show empathy and sympathy when somebody is going through something and I need to help them snap out of that, or see the future? I'm thinking about leadership. How does it relate to leadership in high executive jobs and business owners, where we have to sometimes see for our team members what they cannot see for themselves to give them the bigger picture? And also the win-win relationships, because sometimes, even though when we might be in a way, some people might think of, okay, if you're seeing for themselves, you might be manipulating, but at the same time, if it is a win-win relationship, you're helping those team members that may be at a lower level than you are know how to get to the next level, right? So I see the motivation in that, right? So can I create win-win relationships with my team members, my employees, or co-workers? Can I regulate myself when something is coming up to trigger me? Do I know how to properly communicate so that I don't say something in front of other team members that may create even more challenges and, challenging situations for the people, right? So there is a lot of things going on that I see when I think about emotional intelligence. But to me, most of the time is what is happening to me in my body right now that I need to understand.
I mean, I think the three of you put everything I would love to say, but I think I'd take it a step further and add that it's the ability to understand and recognize our emotions and use them effectively, because sometimes we're not able to recognize what's actually happening. And I think, like I say, a lot of times it all begins with awareness. Once we become aware of it's the emotion, the feeling, or anything, then we have choice. And with that choice leads the possibility for anything and everything. But adding that piece, right? Being able to fully recognize and use our emotions effectively is important. Victoria, actually, I think all three of you said this. One of the biggest pieces that comes out of emotional intelligence for me is the ability to be a better and effective communicator, which after that opens up all doors, because once we know how to communicate, not only with ourselves, but with those around us, it helps. And I was wondering if you guys, in terms of communication, like how do you see your clients and or help them kind of become better, effective communicators through tapping into emotional intelligence?
I think you said a key word. When you're regulating and you know how to read your own body, you become so good at knowing how to be very diplomatic sometimes when with other people, because I think a lot of the communication is also about being diplomatic and knowing how to speak to someone depending on what is happening to them. So there is a lot of things going on behind the scenes when we're communicating with someone. So for example, I don't really do with the high performance coaching that I do for business owners that are in different industry, the coaching for them to communicate with the employees is very specific depending on what's going on. So helping the client, whoever is your client or whoever it is that you're talking to, understand what is the goal of that conversation, where are we going with this conversation, and how do I make it a win-win? Because I think a lot of the times we think about me first and only me, and how is this going to help me, but we don't. When we start putting ourselves in the shoes of other people, we can actually be really strategic about how do we come to an agreement where it's win-win, so it's not one-sided perhaps. And when you start thinking like that, a lot of the things go out of the way, because you're not thinking defensively, you're thinking proactively. And I don't know if that helps to clarify that question, but the coaching that I do for clients when it comes to business coaching and communication, a lot of the time starts with them. What about these people trigger you? Because even when you're talking about very like sales and contracts that are very big, $500,000, $1 million, and you're going to the table and you're nervous, your hands are starting to sweat and stuff like that, it's because there is a part of you that is really being pre-triggered before you even go into that room. So working on those pre-triggers is a lot of what I do with my clients.
I love that too. Sorry,
go ahead.
Communicating and within teams and with that, but it's because when we get to what the emotion is, then we can get to what the intention is with our communication, right? And so, for example, in that sales pitch, if you're nervous and if you're noticing that you're that triggered, well, then can you relax that and focus on the intention of what you want to communicate and what your body's telling you? That's a key thing. And I think becoming a leader of your own life, when we are so aware of what we're experiencing emotionally, we're able to then connect the intention behind that, which then makes us communicate it better, hopefully, right? And that's the goal with the coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love everything you guys said. And back to what MJ said kind of stood out for me because it's so true. She mentioned how anger is usually a cover for another emotion, and I think that's such a key part of what emotional intelligence is. It's like learning yourself so that and having the capacity to really like sit with what's coming up, so that you know what some of these feelings are trying to hide or trying to cover. It's so important. And we used to like put so much emphasis on like IQ before, right? Like IQ was like the big thing. And I think at least with our clients and in our circle, EQ is really the most important, so much more important. I think it's something that isn't given as much value as it really should.
Agreed.
So regarding my clients, working with incarcerated people, in at-risk youth, a lot of them come to me not because they're wanting to work on anger management or regulating their emotions. They're coming to me for like resources. They're coming to me for assistance with jobs and how to stabilize jobs and whatnot. So it's really me pointing out, hey, there's something going on why you probably can't keep this job and whatnot. And it usually takes time for them. If they're upset, we have to work on regulating, the anger. But for what I do with them, I can't always do those things if they're not ready. So I have to refer them to anger management, help them find that outside of what I'm doing, because just for the population that I serve, if they don't want to do that right away, there's not much I can do if they're having ongoing issues with the anger and they're just not ready. So I can't do anything about that.
Anger definitely comes up a lot. Thank you, MJ. And Melvis, you brought up something I wanted to talk about and touch on: IQ versus EQ. And to your point, I think a lot of the world, we focus so much on the IQ, which is important, right? Our intelligence quotient, is that what I even forgot what it stands for. So it was so important, and I agree. However, there's this whole other part of us, right? Our heart space versus our head space. And when we can combine them, I feel like that's what truly makes us effective leaders, and a leader, again, in your own life and your own desires. Because not only do you have the intention, you can put stress management behind it. You can put behaviors behind it that follow your emotions, that make whatever you want to happen even better. But I love that you pointed that out. And talking about stress, I think that when people have a higher EQ, they're better able to manage stress because you're better able to regulate your own emotions. And I think and to me, leaders in any kind of world, in any kind of way, leaders are always, to me, people that are really good at managing stress and whatever it is that they do. And I think that when you have a good hands on your emotional intelligence and you regulate and you self-regulate, your stress levels naturally aren't going to be the same as someone that's just constantly like going from anger to sadness to nervousness to panic, right? Like you have a better grasp and grip on to what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Will you give us some specific tools or techniques that you use to work with your clients, Natalie?
Yeah, so the empathy, and you mentioned this earlier, the empathy and communication skills. When we are able to, and I hate saying this one, but put yourself in other people's shoes for a little bit, it really does give us another level of awareness. And I think that when you can come to someone else's point of view, or even feelings of point of view, that communication's already the door, and the way you can communicate is that much easier. So what I love to do with my clients is kind of go through an exercise of what empathy is, what sympathy is, and what apathy is, because there is that third one too, right? There's different ways of feeling or not feeling, and kind of learning when sympathy is okay, right? Like when you can just be a shoulder to cry on, or when empathy is more needed, meaning, I truly understand your loss and your grief in this situation. I don't feel it, but I can understand how hard this is feeling for you. So I love doing those exercises and teaching people the difference between empathy, sympathy, and apathy, because again, that just only increases our own emotional intelligence. And it's something that I do in particular with my clients that disassociate, right? That don't like to go into their heart space. Like I'll ask them, I'm like, so how are you feeling today? How was last week? Oh, I was busy. Okay, great. And so what was busy? I had this, I had that. I'm like, so how did you feel? And they're like, it was busy, right? Like some clients of mine have a hard time even expressing what they're feeling, what emotions are growing through. So kind of teaching them the difference between those three: empathy, apathy, and sympathy, is something that kind of opens their awareness and their eyes into their own heart space, which I love to do. Getting people into their heart space is yummy. Let's do it. What about you guys? Any other techniques or tools that you use to help people with their emotional IQs?
Well, I love how you, I think we've all mentioned self-regulating, right? Because it's just so vital to really be able to touch that space inside of us that the core emotion resides in. And for that, as for many other things, I just work with my clients with meditation, with just really holding space and connecting to those parts of them that it's just sometimes easier to pretend aren't there, right? Like cover them up, like you said, like MJ said with anger, like you said with busyness. Just so many things that we use to cover those emotions. And it's just it's so important to just hone in to what is really occurring inside of us.
Now, for some of my challenging clients, if the resources are not working, I tend to help them navigate what support they have outside of me. Like it might be a relative, it might be a close friend that has that emotional intelligence. And it's usually someone a lot older that has lived their life and they have learned to regulate their emotions. And they tend to come in and help provide support for a lot of my clients. And when they respect these individuals, they tend to listen to them more, which really helps me do my job working with them as well. So that is something that I use with my clients.
Elders, right? And the wisdom that comes with time. Totally, MJ. I want to backtrack because I don't want people to think that saying that you're busy is a bad thing. We are all busy. We're all human, right? If we're breathing, we're probably busy. And it's okay. I think what I'm trying to highlight is that being busy isn't necessarily a feeling or emotion, right? Like it's and to Melvis's point, like what are you covering? And I love the emotional intelligence piece because it helps you uncover what's under there. And when it's uncovered, then you can work on it if you need to. Then you have more clarity. Then you have a path forward. So again, we're all busy. It's not a bad thing. I just love getting to the, Melvis said this too, the core emotion of what's actually going on for you at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a good clarification. And I also want to clarify for a lot of people that might not understand what we're talking about when we're saying self-regulation. So when we think about self-regulation, we're saying, what is it that I feel in my body, right? What is the felt sense of feeling busy, for example? When you feel busy, what happens to your body? Or when you feel angry, what do you feel in your body? And when we started doing that, I remember sometimes I'll be like, oh, something is about to happen because my body's already feeling it. And the anger in me was about to come out for whatever reason. And I started paying attention. I'm like, okay, I think it was 2015 or 14 that I ended up going to the doctor. And I said, something is wrong with me because I am having a lot of anger outburst. And I say, I need medication. I need you to fix this. There is no way. I had tried meditation, I tried this, and nothing is helping. So sometimes, well, I didn't get the medication, by the way, but sometimes it's important for us to know, okay, when I'm about to get angry, this is what happens within my body. Not anybody else, within my body. And when this happens within my body, I can start feeling the energy amping up, and I start feeling the itchiness in my throat, or feeling like I'm not going to be able to explain myself, or they're not going to understand me. Because sometimes we think that whatever the other people are doing is the problem, but in reality, when we take it back to us, we find a lot of more answers. So the first sense is what we're looking for when we're talking about self-regulation.
I love that, Victoria. And I think you mentioned, not in these words, but physical cues. Our own physical cues are huge. It's such a big, like if you don't know where to start with self-regulating, paying attention to your physical cues. But you made me think of something else too. Emotional freedom technique, or EFT. For a lot of people that have a hard time with self-regulation, it's a tapping technique, and different meridians of our body that kind of ground you into your space, remind you that you're safe. You can do mantras along with them. I can leave a link in the bio of this session, but that's also a really great way for a lot of people to literally tap into what's going on emotionally and to help bring it down so that so you can regulate, but also understand, I think is the word I was looking for, understand what's going on beneath the surface. In addition to that, lastly, because I have a lot of examples, I love this topic. For a lot of my clients that, again, aren't in touch with their feelings, I have an emotion wheel. And similar to what MJ, you said at the very beginning, a lot of people say, well, I'm feeling angry, but really what they're truly feeling underneath is sadness. And anger is sometimes a mask for the true emotion that's underneath. So in this emotion wheel, which I can also leave a link to, it shows you the emotions on the outside, and then you can pick whichever one you're feeling. Let's say it's excited, and then you go into the circle, into a circle, into a circle, until you get into the core emotion. And that's the one that we get to really work with. And that helps a lot of people that are learning about themselves. It's a great tool.